got some guys who, it's interesting as you look over the years, and I know, of course, you and Darrell Waltrip have been tight over the years, and Darrell went 17 years before he finally won his Daytona 500. Dale Earnhardt obviously went a long, long time before he was at 18 years, I think, before he won his first 20 before he won Daytona 500. Last year, Kyle Busch is one of these guys that's been trying and trying, has never won the Daytona 500. He's won everything else but the Daytona 500. Of course, last year
he won the Daytona 500.
Yeah,
he
last
just didn't
year
win the Daytona 501.
Yeah, last year he was leading after 500 miles. Unfortunately, the race did not end there. He needed the flag man from the 24 Hours of Daytona in the stand to flag the race over a lap early. But what is it? What is it about this race that seems to make it so difficult for some of the elite drivers in the sport, Jeff?
If we, if we knew the answer to that question, we could make ourselves a lot of money, Brett. Okay. And that's what's so amazing when you think about Denny Hamlin has won it 3 times. And you think about Richard Petty, he's won it 7 times. Dale Earnhardt, it took him 20 years to win the 500, but he won everything else coming and going prior to that. So it's a tough race to win because of all the variables. And I think the variables, when you look at the number of one-off, winners, I think we've had a different winner 8 times in the last, 10 years or 15 years, something like that. So it's one of those things where it surprises a lot of people. It gives an opportunity for the unexpected to happen. And there again, you can analyze it. You can do whatever you want. You can flip coins all you want to. There's no guarantee, and there's no rhyme or reason on how long it will take you to win one of the easiest but hardest races to win.
JR, you talked about it. I mean, Kyle Busch, he did. He got out of the car last year and he says, I was finally leading this race after 500 miles, and they wouldn't let it end.
Yeah, well, I think Jeff hit it right on the head. I think what it is about this type of racing on the super speedways is the fact that there are those variables out there that level the playing field. So I think when you go to Daytona, and I think people like to say, hey, if you fire your engine at Daytona or Talladega, you got a chance to win it. I think that's a little far to go. I think what the real thing should be, if you're running at the end of Daytona or Talladega, you probably have an opportunity to win it because of the way things hash out. I think if you go to a racetrack like, maybe Las Vegas, Phoenix, I think you get to a limit of the number of people you feel as if are going to be able to win that race because of the quality of race team and the quality of driver. But if you have that opportunity for the underdog to come up and win, that makes it more difficult for the usual suspect, for the odds-on favorite. So I think when you look at odds makers and what they put out, normally, if you go to a racetrack, I think your favorite pays something like, 3-1, 4-1. When you go to Daytona or Talladega, your favorites are only paying 10, 11 to, or not only are paying 10 or 11 to 1, which tells you that's that much more difficult to predict in this thing. So they're a different beast, and that's why I think it eludes some of the best in the business. But man, once you get it, your name is on that trophy. You're a Daytona 500 winner wherever you go the rest of your career.
We talk about Kyle Busch. He had a great run last year. I hear a lot of sentiment this year, Jeff, for Brad Keselowski.
A lot of people feel that maybe it's his time. And again, it could be. I mean, every time you strap on that helmet, tells you that you have that right. I mean, and again, I think we all are looking at the numbers are lining up in such a way that he's getting into that elite group of 15 years or something like that, 14 years of not winning. And I hate to tell him this. I mean, you go look at Rusty Wallace and look at Mark Martin. There was a few drivers that, went a long time without winning and never did win. So, hey, that's the reason why we're having this conversation. We can't guarantee you. We can tell you that, hey, that's a favorite. But to me, I was asked just the other day, who do you think can win the Daytona 500? Well, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So I'm staying with Denny Hamlin. I think he's the guy. He's got some momentum coming out of L.A. I think that this is a racetrack that really suits him, and I think he may have the right people at the right time. New engineers, it seems like he is energized going into the 500 like not in recent years that he's been.
JR, another guy that is not only never won the 500. He's never won at Daytona in a points-paying race. Martin Truex Jr., he's been running there since 2005.
Yeah, they've never that racetrack and the big tracks have never been that never been that kind to Martin Truex. But guys, let's remember we were talking about Brad Keselowski a moment ago. Here's a guy who had a stranglehold on Talladega, but Daytona just didn't come his way. Dale Earnhardt won everything there is to win at Daytona for so many years, yet the 500 eluded him, and that's why again this is such a long shot and such hard thing to predict as to what's going to go on. Yeah, it certainly is Kyle Busch or Brad Keselowski's time. It certainly is out there for them, but there's simply no guarantees in something that can happen. Shoot, guys, what is 1990? Derek Cope passes Earnhardt because he cuts a tire. Then there's the seagull. Then there's the big wreck, that takes you out here or there. There's all those different variables. So you could go into this thing saying, man, Brad Keselowski, Kyle Busch, best in the business, champions, won on these big racetracks before, but just not this particular race. They should be favorites. They should be very high up there in terms of what the odds makers put out. But man, again, there are just simply no guarantees in any race. There are fewer guarantees at the Daytona 500.
But Brett, let me ask you a question. Let's not just talk about the ones who haven't. Let's talk about some of the ones who have that kind of surprises. Last year, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. We know he's pretty good, at this racetrack, but he had never won the 500. And then, Austin Cindric, he's won the 500. I mean, first time out, there's a rookie who wins the 500. You go down the list, Trevor Bayne, and all of a sudden you start thinking Austin Dillon. You just keep saying, okay. So who could possibly be this year the surprise?